Booze news. News about booze. All the news that's booze to use. Okay, some new statistics are in. Yay. 400 million people worldwide now have some kind of alcohol use disorder. Quite a lot. And 209 million people have an alcohol dependency, that is to say they are alcoholics. 209 million people. That's a big chunk of the population. That's like at least 80% of the world. Something like that. And every year, 3 million people will die of an alcohol-related disaster. Condition, disease, accident, that kind of thing. 3 million people. That's like the population of Moldova. Like, what if Moldova just stopped existing once a year? Like, every year, Moldova just disappeared. What would happen? Who would be around to do all the Moldovan things? Like the weird dancing? Okay, that's a bad example. It's more like Baltimore. The whole population of Baltimore just disappearing every year. You would think, like, if the population of Iowa died every year, we might do something about it. In fact, I think it's kind of weird that we're not freaking out about 3 million people dying every year. And yet, we do nothing. Down the hatch. Alright, that was a morbid start. Brothers, sisters, comrades and friends, welcome to Bat Country. Okay, today I would like to try to explain what it is like to be an alcoholic for the sake of people who aren't. But a couple of show notes first, a couple of things about Bat Country. Just going to consult my notes. For those of you who want to support the channel a little bit more actively, there is now a Patreon available. The link to that is in the description, and there's already a kind of growing community there, which I find kind of easier to moderate than I do with the community here on YouTube. So if you want to be a more active participant, if you want a direct line to me, or you want a little bit of influence over the kind of content that will appear on Bat Country, Patreon's the way to do it. You don't have to pay, and nothing will change on this channel either. But if you want to show some support, then go there. If you're unwilling to go to Patreon, then please do subscribe here. It is a great help. But over on the Patreon, there's like some exclusive content and some opinions and behind the scenes stuff, that kind of thing. Right, that is enough shilling of stuff. Alcoholism. Let's talk about it. I think that people who aren't alcoholics struggle to understand what alcoholism is actually like. And before we get into it, I'm not trying to win your sympathy on behalf of alcoholics. I'm not trying to make you feel sorry for us. And as a recovering alcoholic myself, I find myself with limited sympathy for alcoholics. I have a lot of empathy, but my patience runs out pretty quick. I firmly believe, unfortunately, that alcoholics are selfish, or rather that alcoholism is a selfish condition, and that sobriety requires courage and willpower and self-restraint and personal responsibility. Alcoholics, none of those are characteristics synonymous with alcoholics. So I am a little harsh in my language when it comes to discussing other alcoholics. Anyway, the point is, I'm not going to make you, if you're not an alcoholic, I'm not trying to make you feel sorry for us. Rather, I'm just trying to provide an insight into the condition itself. What are the contradictions and paradoxes with which we wrestle that might go some way to explaining our shitty behavior? So from the outside, alcoholism can just look like drinking too much, and in a sense, that is a fine definition of alcoholism. It is the consumption of too much alcohol. So yeah, drinking too much is what the condition is, in a sense. But that's not what it is like to live with. It's not simply drinking too much. So first, let me define some terms. What kind of alcoholic am I talking about when I say I want to explain what it's like to be an alcoholic? Well, there are several different types, and I will mostly be talking about my own kind, which is an absolutely suicidal, self-obliterative drinker, like a low bottom, rock bottom alcoholic. But some of what I say might also be familiar to another group of alcoholics, which are those who are kind of just circling the drain at the moment, kind of borderline alcoholics, people whose alcoholism isn't yet dictating everything in their life. They're still able to be relatively functional. Because I think those people actually represent the majority of alcoholics. The almost beyond help alcoholics like me represent a relatively small fraction, I think. Most alcoholics don't know yet that they're alcoholics. They're like heavy drinkers, but they're not yet ready to admit to themselves that they have a problem. So one of the first misconceptions about alcoholism is that it is the easy option, it's the easy way out. That alcohol is easier than facing the conflicts that are causing the drinking in the first place. And in a sense, at least for me, that is true. I was drinking so heavily in order to escape from the pressures and the stresses and the negative emotions that come with daily existence. I wasn't ready to face them sober, so I was drinking very heavily. Just the various negative emotions of being alive. I wanted to block that out. But it's an unfair assessment that it's the easy option, because being an alcoholic isn't easy. It's miserable. It's exhausting. It takes constant effort to be an alcoholic. It takes the sheer effort it takes to be so miserable is exhausting. We're always tired. An alcoholic, any time that we're not drinking, we feel like death. And that is not hyperbole. I mean, severe alcohol withdrawal when you're drinking at really high volumes will make death feel imminent. You have a constant feeling of impending death when you're not drinking. It's exhausting to live like that, like constantly penduluming between the being certain that you're about to drop dead of a heart attack or a coronary embolism or a stroke, and cramming your body with as much alcohol as you possibly can to stifle that feeling. It gets on top of you really fast. And even less severe alcoholics, less chronic alcoholics are tired all the time. You don't have to be an extreme drinker for alcoholism to be a full-time job. Even for relatively moderate drinkers, alcohol is an obsession. Of every moment of every day, it informs every decision that you will make as you go about your day. Even for relatively moderate problem drinking, by my standards, when you wake up in the morning already dehydrated and anxious and perhaps starting to tremble and sweat already, when you wake up, your first thought is rarely breakfast. Your first thought is, should I have a shot? Should I take a shot to kind of stabilize myself? Because then I won't even be over the limit to drive to work. These are the thought processes of an alcoholic. And then throughout the day, it's, can I get away with a drink at work? Or how much time is left in the day before I can have a drink? And then in that evening, maybe I should buy 2 bottles instead of 1, so that I don't have to go out in the morning. These are all the signs of creeping alcoholism. When we're alcoholics, when we're entrenched in alcoholism, we are thinking about our next drink even while we are drinking. When I was deep into a multi-day, multi-week vodka binge, I would start obsessing about whether I need to go and buy more when the bottle was still half full or half empty. I suppose every cup is half empty when you're an alcoholic. We are a pessimistic bunch. And as soon as that thought had occurred to me that I might have to go and buy more, once I'd made that decision, I would drink the rest of the bottle twice as fast because I had made the decision. And there was like comfort in that more was available. So I would drink faster and get more and more drunk even quicker. And we tend to set limits for ourselves, daily alcohol limits, especially in less extreme alcoholism, in earlier stages of chronic alcoholism, where you might tell yourself in the morning, I'll only have 3 beers today. And then the evening rolls around and you have only had 3 beers. And you think to yourself, well, I've clearly got it under control. I may as well go and buy 3 more. And before you know it, you're congratulating yourself on your self-restraint for only having 3 beers by having 10 or 12. It doesn't make any fucking sense. Alcoholic logic. Alcohologic. That's rubbish. Forget I said that. I've only drunk 3, so I may as well treat myself to 6. It doesn't make any sense. And we do that to ourselves all the time, in a million weird and strange little ways. We lie to ourselves. And because you drank 10 instead of the 3 that you promised yourself you would drink, you're now hungover in the morning again. So you might take another drink again to just stabilize yourself. And now the cycle is repeating, day in, day out, and accelerating as well. The brakes are off. And the process of hiding our drinking is itself exhausting, let alone the physiological depressant effects of alcohol. Just the process of living a double life is exhausting. Alcoholism makes us lie. Alcoholics are habitual liars. It is almost automatic. It's part of our central nervous system. It's like a tick. And there are no exceptions. Whoever you are, you will be lying once your alcoholism starts to slip away from you, once you begin to lose control. You'll downplay how much you've been drinking. That's a big indicator. And you'll start hiding the empties so that people don't notice. And you might do that at home. You might leave the bottles outside your house so that the people you live with haven't noticed. Or you might do it at work. You might leave it in somebody else's bin. Or leave it in a bin outside the building. My family was here with me last week, and I had this really interesting conversation with my dad. I had an incredibly bad 5-month-long suicidal binge when I was living in the UK. And my dad helped me move out of the house that I'd been binging in once that binge was more or less over. And he arrived at my house to help me move out. And during that period, that 5 months, I'd been drinking something like 1.5 liters of vodka or whiskey a day, every day, without fail. Like 2 70 centiliter bottles or whatever. 2 bottles a day for 5 months. And when he arrived to help me move out, he opened one of the wardrobes, and in there were 3 full-size suitcases stuffed with empty bottles, bulging, like hard to close them. And they were almost too heavy to lift, just with empty vodka and whiskey bottles. And he told me last week when we were talking about it, that was the first time that he had seen or had a sense of the scale of my drinking. Those 3 suitcases. And yeah, I agree it was a lot, but what he didn't know was that those 3 suitcases represented a tiny fraction of the actual amount. Because those were only the ones that he found. He didn't find the ones that I'd stuffed into public bins or dropped around the countryside of Cornwall. Those 3 suitcases that he was so shocked to discover, they legitimately represented only about 5% of what I had drunk in that period. And I only told him last week that that was the case. And even when it's so obvious that you are a hopeless alcoholic, when everybody knows, when the secret is out, I still tried to downplay it by saying those 3 suitcases are it. That's it. Those kinds of lies, they become automatic. I've only had a couple of beers, officer. Oh, yeah, I may have had a beer at lunch, boss. Everyone else was drinking more than me at the bar last night. All of these kind of little lies to disguise how much we're drinking. And those lies that we tell, they're not free. They incur a debt. And that debt is a feeling of shame and guilt. I mean, if we weren't ashamed of our drinking, then we wouldn't lie about it. And that's all you need to know. And for what it's worth, that's true of everyone who drinks, well, virtually everyone. It's not just alcoholics who lie about their alcohol consumption. There was another statistic that I read recently that said, on average, people reduce the amount that they're drinking by 50% on self-reported studies. That is to say, everybody who responds to medical surveys about how much they're drinking underreports their own drinking by 50% on average. So alcohol makes everyone lie, not just alcoholics. And those lies, they feel small at the time, just about the amount that we're consuming. But they add up, and soon we're kind of living a double life, which itself is exhausting. A double life in which we have to remember what lies we've told which people, or who knows what information, who remembers what about our drinking. And we have to maintain a lot of spinning plates. And as we drink more and more, that becomes harder and harder. Keeping up appearances, pretending that everything's okay, it all takes a toll after a while. And there comes a point in drinking. This is really what it's like to be an alcoholic. There comes a point when none of it is good anymore. When we don't enjoy it anymore. And you just you never feel okay. Even when you're drinking to stabilize yourself, there's never a plateau of feeling good. It's all kind of interstitial and temporary. And not only do you not feel okay, any time that you're not drunk, you feel poisoned. You feel your body feels toxic. And you're so crushingly tired all the time. Like, alcohol is anathema to good sleep, to good restful sleep. You just don't get any good sleep. You get unconsciousness when you're an alcoholic. And it's not the same as sleep. You might pass out for 8-9 hours, but you're not rested when you wake up. And that's what alcoholism feels like. You're tired all the time. I hear people say quite regularly that they drink to feel normal. And in fact, it pops up as a question when you do when you go into treatment or when you do a self-assessment for your drinking. The question will be, on a scale of 1 to 10, how true is the statement, I drink to feel normal? And that makes me think that is true of most people. I think a lot of people would respond that they drink to feel normal. But it's not true of me. For me, feeling normal was the problem. I didn't want to feel normal. I didn't like feeling normal. And I drank to avoid that feeling. What I wanted to feel was nothing. So while it's easy to think that alcoholics are drinking for fun, perhaps it looks fun, or there's a preconception that drinking a lot of alcohol is just a fun way to live. Look at Lemmy from Motorhead, he lived a fun life. The vast majority of us haven't had any fun in decades. It hasn't been fun for years. It is a miserable existence. And we don't even want to do it. That's the crazy thing, is that we don't even want to be alcoholics, most of us. We don't, and yet we force the alcohol into our bodies regardless. We force it down, even when we don't want to. And then we might even throw up and then just keep going. Does that sound like fun? We're not having fun. Most of us hate it. We hate this life. And I remember a feeling in one of these kind of self-obliviating binges that I used to have. I remember feeling like I wanted to replace my blood with alcohol. Like I wanted pure alcohol in my veins rather than blood. Or like, I wanted every void in my body to be completely saturated in alcohol until there's no room for anything else, no room for oxygen. I wanted the alcohol to force everything else out so I would just be that. That was a genuine desire that I had. It's a very strange condition. And I'm aware that I'm an extreme example and not everybody will go to those lengths. It's not like that for everybody, but for most people it is equally insidious. Like, for example, for a moderate drinker, they might be more like, well, it's the weekend, so it's time to drink. And then they wake up in the morning and they're like, oh, well, I'm never drinking again. And then by the afternoon, they're like, actually, I feel a little better. Maybe I overreacted this morning. Maybe I'll just have a couple of drinks tonight. And then that evening, they have a couple of drinks and then they think like, well, the damage is done now. I may as well just lean in. I may as well get smashed. And then they wake up the following morning and they think to themselves like, why did I do that to myself again? And that's the big question. Why do we do it to ourselves? Every alcoholic wonders that. Why have I done this to myself again? Well, the answer to that is different from person to person. The reason why we're drinking the way we are, well, it's crucial to understand that for the sake of our recovery and for sobriety. We have to put in a lot of time to figure out what is causing the drinking in the first place. But for a lot of us, we don't consider the alcohol to be the problem. The alcohol is the medicine. It's everything else that is the problem. And we are medicating ourselves with alcohol. Unfortunately, we are allergic to the medicine. The medicine is toxic for us, but we have to take it. The alcohol is the medicine against trauma or negative emotions or depression or loneliness. So that's why we take it. But we take it knowing that it is killing us. We are allergic to our medicine. And it reminds me of something the writer Christopher Hitchens said about chemotherapy shortly before his death. He described his chemotherapy as a poison that made him feel awful. It made him feel like he'd been poisoned. But he said that there was some comfort in that. Because he said that if it is hurting him, if the treatment is hurting him, then perhaps it was also hurting the cancer. I always found that very, very complex. There's a lot to unpack in that thought. But I see a parallel with the way alcoholics have a relationship with alcohol. I think it's true of alcoholics' relationship with alcohol too. And that is to say, like, the fact that it makes us feel bad is proof that it is effective. Whatever it is that we need it to do, it's working, it's effective for us. It's like how they add an unpleasant smell to gas so that you can smell if there's a leak. Or like cleaning products are made to smell much stronger than necessary because we as consumers might be suspicious they didn't work if they smelled of lavender or something. And that's what it's like to be an alcoholic. It's like seeking medicine to which we are allergic, that is toxic for us. Being an alcoholic is like wading through quicksand. You don't notice the grip it has on you until it's too late. And as soon as you realize that it has a grip on you and you begin to fight it, for a while, it just sucks you in deeper. Very hard to escape. You have to know how to get out. And getting out of it is hard because alcohol is both the cage and the key, right? Alcohol is like a prison, but a prison in which all the doors are open and you could just walk out if you wanted. But the prison has made itself such a pleasant place to be for us, such a reassuring and comforting place to be, that we're kind of institutional now. And we tend to ignore the exit signs. even though the exit is right there if we would just walk through it. But I don't know, alcoholism is not a rational condition. And it's hard, you can't reason with alcoholism. Unfortunately, it's like there's a parasite in our brain, and it's pulling all the levers, controlling us like a drunken marionette. Our decisions are not always fully our own in active addiction. And that parasite in our brain, it whispers to us in our own voice that maybe it'll be different this time. You've proved to yourself that you can resist a drink, so you're safe to drink. Just take one. It'll be different this time. And those thoughts, those impulses, those urges, they seem to come from some external place, like very truly an intrusive thought, as if the thoughts themselves are not your own. Alcohol is literally a mind-altering substance. And those thoughts that you have are not always your own. It can change the way that you think, which means it can change the way that you would make decisions, the way you act and the things that you say. And we don't mean to hurt people around us. We tend to think that we're only hurting ourselves when we drink, and we don't mean to do damage to those around us. But the truth is, we also just don't care. And it's not that we are not malicious. We're not maliciously uncaring. It's more that, like, our theory of mind is deprecated in alcoholism. We become less aware that other people have rich and complex inner lives. We're only able to consider our own. And we swing from grandiosity to self-loathing. We demand that you love us, even though we hate ourselves. We shut out the world, and then we're angry at our loneliness, and we push people away, and then we resent our isolation. We are egomaniacs with inferiority complexes, as they say in 12-step programs. So look, the point is that the life of an alcoholic is a selfish one, and it doesn't deserve sympathy if you don't want to offer it. But it is a life of complexity and paradox and contradiction. And those kind of paradoxes, those contradictions can manifest in very simple ways too, not like the big conceptual ones that I've just mentioned, but very simple ones. Like, for example, how our hygiene will be very, very poor, but we will still think we're incredibly appealing. And I mention that because I have a memory on my mind right now of waking up in a hospital in Zagreb after having my stomach pumped and being convinced that the nurse was attracted to me. Gross. But that is exactly what we're like. We will lie in a hospital bed after going through one of the most disgusting, invasive medical procedures, just an absolute wreck, and still convinced that we're God's gift. It's very, very hard work being an alcoholic. Very, very few of us enjoy it. Okay, I think that's enough for today. Bit of a rant there. Just to get myself back in the groove, because I've been away for a couple of weeks. I'd like to thank everybody who has already subscribed to the Patreon for your support. It's unexpected to already have a community of about 250 people there. In a community that's very, very positive and quite easy for me to manage. And the little bit of money that's generating is already starting to take the pressure off, having to seek sponsorships and stuff like that, because I get some crazy ones. I've had many recently from the Chinese company Pop Mart asking me to sell Labubu dolls on this channel. I don't think they've watched the channel, obviously. But it takes the pressure off being tempted to do stuff like that. So if you would like to show some support for the channel a little bit more actively, and give me the confidence that I have the time to do this and I can justify putting so much effort into it, Patreon is absolutely the way to go and do it. Thank you for watching, and as always, good luck out there.